Hey guys, Ricky here from Connerty Meadows Farm. I want to talk today about a topic of conversation that's come up. There's been some people that have gone after farming friends of mine complaining about animals being left out in the snow. So we live in Canada and, animals live outside. And they've been complaining that the animals are cold because they have snow all over them. So I just want to take a minute and introduce you, if you haven't met, our cow Freya. And she's covered in snow. Do you see what she's doing with her mouth there? It's called chewing their cud. And a cow will only do that if they're happy and content. Now, I also want to point out something. There's a shelter back there. It's deeply bedded. There's hay in it. There's also hay in this blue container here. She has hot water delivered 3 times a day to her. She has everything that she needs out here. Do I have a barn that she could go in? Yes, but I don't need to do that when she has a barn right there. Now, if you're going to come at me about the fact that she has snow on her back, believe it or not, snow on their back is actually a good thing. What? Okay, so let me explain. On a house, there's snow on the roof, and that snow is not melting. Now, why is that? Well, that's because the heat from inside the house is not escaping up through the roof because there's enough insulation up there. So the house is warm because of the insulation, so no heat is escaping. If heat was escaping and I didn't have enough insulation on my roof of my house, the snow would be melting off. The same can be said for cows and horses and other animals outside. So Freya is actually half dairy cow, which they generally don't do well outside in the cold. Some of them can grow a really good coat, but she's a Dexter Jersey, so her breed is a Belfair. And look at the thick layer of snow on her. That means that her fur is insulating her properly. She's not losing any heat. She is toasty warm underneath her coat. And she is happily chewing away at her cud. Now her calf, same thing. Mufasa is covered in snow. He has a nice, healthy coat. She is not bothered by this weather at all. And if she was, she's a barn that is cozy and warm. Now let's take you over to my horses. There's the horses. Now, the horses have blankets. Why do the horses have blankets? When our temperature hits negative 20 degrees Celsius, I always put blankets on these too because they're standard breds. And unlike some of the other horses that we've had, quarter horses and whatnot, that actually grow a decent, thick fur, these guys can't. And they end up shivering, especially this girl here. She's in her 20s. The guy over there, he's a recent rescue. We've had him for just over a year now, and he was skin and bones when we got him, so he still has a hard time regulating his temperature. But if you look behind, they also have a shelter they can go in and out of at will. Now, if these guys were standing out in the snow, would they have a layer on them? Probably. I've seen them multiple times stand out in the snow, but we were I think about minus 28 degrees Celsius last night. So they had their blankets on and then it started snowing and warmed up a little bit. But as you can see, think of their blankets like the insulation in a house. Snow is gathering on their blankets. It's not melting off. It means they have enough insulation. It's the same thing. Blankets, snow blankets on a house, on a cow, on a horse, any animal. If our sheep had been outside overnight, which they're not because we live in a very high coyote and coywolf area, they also would have a huge layer of fluffy snow on them. Now, the goats, no. The goats don't do that. They get a nice layer of fluff, but they don't do well in the wet and the cold. So they would stay in, or we would put our goat coats on. It's pretty easy. Anyway, just thought I'd go over that. There's been a lot of people coming at farmers in the wintertime, but that's the reasoning why animals live outside, and they're fine to live outside. Just give them the adequate shelter, food, and water, and they're fine. And just so you know, animals like cows that have 4 stomachs, the heat of eating actually is what keeps them warm. So long as they have food in front of them, they're warm. And horses, while they don't have 4 stomachs, so long as they have food in front of them, they will stay warm because eating keeps them warm. And just a quick note, while I do deliver water to the cow 3 times a day, the horses actually have a heater in their water, so it's always thawed. So just note, in the area where the horses don't have a blanket, the snow is still not melting, so insulation is not escaping. Hi, Red. They are staying warm because they have a floofy coat on them. So animals living outside, even in Canada, not a problem, guys. Not a problem. And just like the cow, they have a shelter they can go into if they choose. But as you can see, they're not choosing to. So no worries. And just like the cow, they have hay inside their shelter as well. So, all right, guys, that's it. Just a little bit of education for you today. We'll see you next time on the farm, maybe when it's not so cold.